Or could we start the clock again on the basis that we'll pass it all the way around the House and let everybody else... well, I might need 10... Yeah, well, I should be able to, but can we not just go around the House and come back? Okay, so it's back to Fianna Fáil. 20 minutes. Good morning, last Concorda. I hate winding up in a situation in a speech that I prepared, that you're rushing it at the end, and I think you'll appreciate that, and I appreciate your facilitation of this, and I appreciate all the other members of the House for not being here. Minister of State, last Concorda, at this stage of the budget debate, I think it's fair to say that it's a bit like cold turkey a week after Christmas. But on the other hand, there are important things to be said, and backbenchers don't get in the early part, high-profile part of the debate, but there's no reason to think that what they say is any less worthy of concern. I have to say I'm very disappointed with the budget, and I believe that within the financial constraints the country faces, a lot more could have been done on a number of issues. Now, climate change, and people talking about climate change, seems to be the flavour of the month. And I'll come to the carbon tax later, but I think there are actually much more fundamental challenges facing society on climate change than the carbon tax. When we look at the big discourse of our society, particularly in financial circles and government circles and so on, everything seems to be predicated around continuous economic growth and output. Now, if every country in the world does that, we're only accelerating the day that we all run out of resources, that we all run out of ability to actually create a sustainable society. And of course, the whole basis of modern society is to get people to buy more and more, even if they don't at times need some of the things that they're buying. The reality of the consumer society is that it is focused on the ever-increasing sales, not on people's real needs. Now, at the same time as this, homelessness and poverty are rife in our society, and the gap between the most well-off and the poorest in society is widening. Not only the income gap, but the standard of living gap. So the future cannot be in the continued destruction of our resources and our ecology, but in a much better distribution of wealth and ensuring that everybody's basic needs are catered for. The basic needs of a home, adequate means, the opportunity of gainful employment for those who are fit to take up employment, suitable welfare for those who aren't, heat, food, etc. And the reality is that the government, while tinkering around the edges, have not engaged in any meaningful vision of the future of Irish society. And I suppose I could say the same thing for the European Union, which is fixated on this economic growth, which is not doing a lot for the people that I represent. Now, in relation to the carbon tax, in my view, the carbon tax is only justifiable if there are suitable mitigating measures for those most effective and alternatives provided so that there can be a change of practice. In the case of the carbon tax in this budget, people living in rural Ireland and the less well-off are going to be most affected, but still the mitigating measures do little for them. As you know, Minister of State, in rural Ireland, the use of a car for leisure and work is a necessity, because there are no public transport solutions provided. This is not because rural areas are naturally more carbon intensive, but because of the inequities in policy. It is extraordinary to note that the expenditure per head of population on bus services in rural areas is 1/5 of that in the urban areas. This is an extraordinary fact that very few people recognise, and certainly the elites do not want to know about because it doesn't suit. It is also a fact that bus fares in rural areas are twice per kilometre that in urban areas. Now, I would have thought that the carbon tax was an absolute ideal opportunity for the government to address this injustice to rural dwellers and start giving equality of fares and start improving the services. In fact, in page 20 of the budget, the Minister said there were going to be measures on rural transport. I asked the Minister of Transport a parliamentary question this week about what measures we were going to get, and all he did was rehash a cold dinner and tell us that he'd given more money for the last 3 years to Rural Link, and that some minor changes in bus services, some that affect my constituency, that are already decided on for the last 6 months, were going to happen. So the budget says one thing, but realities, cold reality from the Minister of Transport says another, because we're beyond step aside. In relation to home heating and the fuel allowance, the reality is that as many rural dwellers live in standalone houses, they have huge opportunities with renewable energy, particularly renewable microenergy, whether it's solar, small windmills and so on. But again, the government haven't grasped the nettle. They haven't included feedback tariffs and the PSO being also included for micro-renewable energy in their plans. So if you have a large windmill, you can get a PSO on it. But if you're producing renewable energy and feeding back into the grid, if you can feed back into the grid, and most people can't, then you don't benefit from this. And this is happening in many other countries. And again, the Minister and the government missed an opportunity in introducing this. Another problem that I think we all come across are people living in older, badly constructed houses in terms of thermal quality. Now, some of these houses need repairs beyond insulation and the warmer home schemes and so on. They need more fundamental repairs and improvements to things like doors, to things like windows, etc. Many of the people living in these houses are of low means. And again, we need a scheme dealing with these basic infrastructural deficiencies that will be available on an ongoing basis through the local authorities, like the Housing Aid for Older People. The Housing Aid for Older People is quite a good scheme, but the amazing thing is if you're under 65 or 66 years of age, for example in Galway, and I think it's 60 years in some other local authorities, the reality is it doesn't matter how bad your house is, there's no help to do it up. And there's no point in talking about insulating a house that has drafty doors and single glazed windows, etc. There's no point in increasing the fuel allowance when all the heat is going out the windows and going out in every direction in a way that, as I said, the existing insulation schemes won't deal with. Just like to say a word about disability. The lack of provision for adequate funding for disability since 2011 has been scandalous. In examining the expenditure report that forms part of the budget documentation, it transpires that all that is provided for this sector is 25 million. Now, this has to include all of the standard wage increases that are going to public servants in the rollback of FEMPTI, the increased number of people with significant disabilities due to population growth, and the thankful fact that people with disabilities live longer, and also the huge increase in the standards of care that need to be provided to people. I had a parent recently on the phone who has an adult daughter with multiple and very significant disabilities. And they told me that the financial envelope that they have for 2019-2020 to provide services for that adult is exactly the same as it was in 2008. Now, what other service can be provided for the same cost as 2008? And in particular in this case, new HSE regulations mean that it takes two people to do, quite rightly, what one used to be allowed to do in the past. This family are finding it impossible to buy basic services for a highly disabled person. I believe that the measure of any government is their commitment to the most deserving and the voiceless in society. By this measure, this government is an abject failure. While an couple of focal rá fan Oireachtas, fan Gaeilge, as fan na Hillainn. As camera, the umper in realta seo le na Gaeilge, na Oireachtas agus na Hillainn náireach. As níl focal be eile faoi, náireach. Fan taras dáite dina dheol go pásanta. Ach is léir nach bhfuil áirde be ag go rialtas mar rialtas éis. Nuair a chead an rialtas, an strateis fé bliain go Gaeilge, sa mbliain 2010, go dtí an héine sa mína nula 2010, bhí takeíocht agus strateis ó gach pártaí má bhí ach dúirtead go rath. Dúirtead más rudda be nach rodóhanna. In 2010, an bbliain a cadiamh an plán, bhí 61 milliún ar fáil go Gaeilge Gaeltachtas na Hillainn, gan foras na Gaeilge chuir san áireamh, na meastacháin. 10 milliún in níos sin, agus an rialtas a muomh go bhfuil ar a chur an strateis i bhain, níl ach solathair go 58 milliún go bbliain se rúin. Sin laidú go 3 milliún déag. Go mór ó hebh caiteachas capitalia, tá titim tobaistach ó 3 milliún go 5 milliún déag. Ach seo gara siar ar bhanstrochtúir na Gaeltachtas agus na Hillainn. Mar hampla, caithfidh 100 milliún euro sa deimlíon i do 2000 agus 2010 ar bhanstrochttar Irlanda. Ní airnó aon tugra go lucht níos móna milliún euro na Hillainn ó chuin. A rud atá spéisiú freisin. In 2010, bhí 5 milliún déag ar fáil gúdras na Gaeltachta, mar airgad capital. Sin an tairgad takeú le Johntaisi a thuirt go tionsclóirí a tíochtasteachta fostiíochta cross na Gaeltacht agus le fuirgannta go na tionscail sin. Inis an bbliain se thugainn ní bheith I gceist ach 9 milliún. San iomlán, ní bheith gceist ach 6 milliún breise go Gaeltacht Gaeilge agus na Hillainn an bbliain se thugainn. Go bunúsú ar atáid is léir nach spéisios an rialtas an teanga agus nach bhfuil a gceist acu an strateis 5 bliain go Gaeilge agus tá sé náman chu sin ádáil. Agus stoppa an corrigéil agus a nídinge insint. Agus mar sin, mar a dúirt méid an tús tá diúmó an tílarm fin gáin aisné seo agus creidim héin gur teip ar phobal na héireann an cháin aisné seo.